I don't know how much the average person knows about the United States enlistment process, but turns out it's a lot more tedious than I would have previously considered. So, if you want to become one of these bad boys, you'll need to travel to a MEPS facility. And since I'm from this general region right around here, I had to go to one. So, I'm going to tell you about it. But, before I start, you may be wondering, what the heck even is a MEPS? Well, according to Google, it's mostly referred to as a military entrance processing station. So the reason an individual would go to MEPS is to receive one of these bad boys, which you'll need to go to boot camp. To start this whole journey, find a building with both the words military and recruiter, and you'll probably be at the right spot. So to get to the facility, you have to take the official military transportation vehicle. Luckily for me, an elementary school student left a small unicorn toy the day before on my seat, which I was promptly made fun of for having there. Once you get there, there's the federal security, including armed guards, whatever else you could think of, so don't try to bring in any weapons or anything. But you could be like one dude who went at the same time as me and brought 3 bottles of Mountain Dew. And they let him keep them, so to each your own. Once they confirm you're a human and not some wacky lizard man, they'll hand you a massive stack of papers in a folder and send you off to where you gotta go. Eventually you'll end up at medical where they run a bunch of tests on you. The first test I took was for my hearing. So they put me in a tiny room with a little button and headphones, which, just a side note, I'd recommend getting as much sleep as possible the night before all this, because instead of sleeping, I spent the night watching Dictator and YouTube, which in hindsight was not the greatest idea. But anyway, another guy sat next to me and we were instructed to press the button whenever we heard high and low pitched sounds out of these headphones. So we both sat there listening for a while, and it was difficult because I couldn't stop thinking about how bad my hearing was going to be by the end of my career. You know, from shooting stuff. But afterwards, I took a vision test, which is just the basic vision test you take at any eye doctor's. So I looked at the balloon, I did the little peripheral thing with the jazzy Adderall squares, and I read some letters. Afterwards, I peed in a cup, to check for drug use and AIDS. So make sure to be hydrated because the guy I was in the hearing test with didn't have anything in the tank and panicked. And he was promptly told to drink as much water as he could and had to wait to continue until he could supply enough science liquid. Then, shortly after, I gave blood for the first time. And then I entered a fairly large room with benches on the far side with a scale for measuring weight and height on the left and was told to strip to my undergarments. Otherwise, it was an empty room with the exception of a TV in front of the benches, and this TV was interesting because some 8 other guys and myself had nothing else to do but to watch it for maybe 40 minutes, waiting for everybody to come into the... And the only thing that it played was a video of a 40-some-year-old hairy man with a mustache doing various little motions with his body, which we assumed were to show off his supreme dexterity. Once everybody was there, everything was recorded by a Navy guy and the doctor for that day. They instructed us to do the same little exercises that the peak male specimen was doing on the TV, to test to make sure that we were limber enough for Joey Biden. But I recall one memorable moment during this whole experience was while we were doing the exercises. The Navy guy was making jokes with us while we were moving and grooving, but at one point he said, "Imagine that you're stomping on a communist cockroach." The doctor asked, "How do you know it's a communist?" "Because it's evil." And me being the sleep-deprived self that I was, this really buttered my jams. After the exercises were complete, we all sat down and the doctor called in one of us for our physical. After a few minutes, the dude walked back out and he told me it was my turn. I went in there and I was just expecting the standard procedure, and that was until he told me to turn around and spread my cheeks. As a heterosexual male, I wasn't too stoked about this. So out of pure reflex, I stood up too fast, and I guess he didn't get a good enough look, so he had to take a second look. Now, this honestly wasn't too bad. It was just weird, but I made sure to let the other guys know that I hope they all wiped well that morning. But this got me thinking. There were 8 of us in that room, and more on the way, which means that poor doctor has to look at up to 30 buttholes every day. Which, according to a calculator with an average of approximately 261 workdays with 30 buttholes every day, comes out to be 7,830 buttholes every year. If this number was recorded for most buttholes viewed that year, he would be in a close second place right behind your mom. So anyway, The next step was to scan my phalanges to make sure that the FBI knows how to find me easier, and then I was ready to enlist. However, some things got in the way and it took me about 8 months to actually enlist. But hey, I hope you found this video amusing and helpful, and now I'm off to boot camp, so see ya.